Snow fell thick over the parking lot of Aurora Systems as Evelyn Hart stood motionless behind the glass wall on the 20th floor. Below, under the cold fluorescent lights, a solitary figure pushed a cleaning cart through the winter night. Lucas Reed, the night shift janitor, a quiet single father. But security cameras showed something no one could explain. He routinely appeared in restricted areas after hours amid the blinding white storms. Tonight, Evelyn decided to follow him. What she discovered would not only change one man's fate, but shake the entire corporation to its foundation. Northvale wore winter like a shroud. The city hunched beneath relentless snowfall, streets narrowing under banks of ice, the sky a perpetual gray that pressed down on everything. Aurora Systems rose from the downtown core like a shard of glass, 23 floors of steel and ambition, headquarters to one of the region's most aggressive tech firms. Inside, the air felt different. Charged. Electric with something more than innovation. Evelyn Hart stood at the conference room window, her reflection sharp against the darkening sky. At 37, she'd been CEO for only 8 months, brought in to stabilize a company bleeding talent and trust. Her predecessor had left under a cloud of financial irregularities. The board wanted someone clean. Someone ruthless enough to make hard decisions. They'd chosen well. 3 weeks, she said without turning. Behind her, the executive team sat in uncomfortable silence. We have 3 weeks until the Genesis launch. If we miss this window, Hyperion Digital will own our market share by spring. Genesis, a cloud infrastructure platform that promised to revolutionize enterprise data management. 2 years of development, $40 million. Everything riding on a single product launch scheduled for mid-February. We're on track, her CTO, Marcus Webb, offered carefully. The final security audit is where we have a problem. Evelyn turned, her gray eyes cold. She tapped her tablet, and the wall screen illuminated with security footage. Timestamps, access logs, heat maps of building traffic patterns. Someone has been accessing our R&D servers after midnight, multiple times over the past 6 weeks, always from terminals in or near the development wing. The room tensed. Corporate espionage wasn't paranoia in their industry, it was Tuesday. Who? Marcus leaned forward, his face tight. Evelyn pulled up another image. Grainy footage from a hallway camera. Timestamp 2:47 a.m. A man in a gray uniform, pushing a cleaning cart past a secured door. The cart paused, just for a moment. Then continued. Lucas Reed, she said flatly. Night custodian. Works the 3rd shift, 6 nights a week. According to our head of security, he's been seen on the 8th floor, our restricted research level, at least a dozen times in the past month. Custodians have access to most floors, someone ventured. Not to keycard restricted areas. Not to rooms that require biometric scanning. Evelyn advanced through more footage. Lucas appearing near a server room door. Lucas standing motionless in a hallway, facing a wall-mounted terminal. Lucas leaving through a side exit at dawn, alone, collar pulled high against the snow. Could be coincidence, Marcus said, but his voice lacked conviction. I don't believe in coincidence. Evelyn closed the screen. Not when we're 3 weeks from the biggest launch in company history. Not when Hyperion would pay millions for our source code. She'd learned that lesson the hard way. Her ex-husband had taught her that people wore masks, that trust was a liability, that everyone had a price. What do you want to do? Asked Patricia Lorne, head of HR. Evelyn stared out at the falling snow, watching it accumulate on the ledges outside. Below, the parking lot lights were beginning to glow in the early dusk. Soon, the day shift would leave. Soon, Lucas Reed would arrive for another night of invisible work. I want to know what he's doing, she said quietly. Before we accuse him, before we ruin someone's life, we watch him. We could just terminate. No, the word cut like a blade. If he's working for Hyperion, firing him tips them off. If he's innocent. She paused, surprised by her own hesitation. If he's innocent, we've destroyed someone for nothing. The meeting adjourned. Executives filed out, murmuring. Evelyn remained at the window, watching the snow thicken. Somewhere down there, in the gray urban landscape, Lucas Reed was probably picking up his daughter from after-school care, probably buying groceries, probably living an ordinary life, or stealing everything she'd worked to protect. She pulled her phone from her pocket, scrolling to a photo she kept private. Noah, her 10-year-old son, grinning gap-toothed on a ski slope last winter. Before the divorce, before she'd learned that her husband had been funneling company information to competitors, before she'd realized that the person sleeping beside her had been her enemy all along. That betrayal had cost her everything except Noah, and it had taught her to see threats everywhere, even in the quiet man who cleaned her floors at night. Lucas Reed's alarm clock went off at 4:30 p.m., its harsh beep cutting through the dim apartment. He reached out from under 3 blankets, heat cost money, and silenced it with practiced efficiency. The room was cold enough to see his breath. He sat up slowly, joints protesting. 41 wasn't old, but 3 years of night shifts and physical labor had aged him in ways that didn't show in mirrors. His body knew the truth even when his reflection lied. Through the thin wall, he heard movement. Mia was awake. "Morning, sweetheart." He pulled on thermal underwear, then jeans and a sweatshirt. The apartment's baseboard heater clicked and groaned, struggling against the winter pressing at every window. How was school? Mia appeared in his doorway, still in her school clothes. 8 years old, with her mother's dark curls and a gap where her front tooth used to be. She held her math homework like an offering. "Mrs. Patterson says I got all the word problems right." Lucas took the paper, studied it carefully. His daughter's handwriting was careful, precise. Numbers lined up in neat columns. She'd shown her work for every problem, just like he'd taught her. "That's my girl." He kissed the top of her head. "Proud of you. What do you want for dinner?" "Can we have spaghetti?" They had spaghetti 3 times a week because pasta was cheap and filling. Mia never complained. She'd learned early, too early, how to be grateful for enough. "Spaghetti it is." He cooked while she did more homework at their small kitchen table. The apartment was cramped. 1 bedroom that Mia slept in, a living room where Lucas kept a fold-out couch, a kitchen barely big enough for 2 people to stand in. But it was clean, warm enough, safe. That was all that mattered after Emily died. The cancer had taken her fast. 13 months from diagnosis to funeral. By the time Lucas understood they were losing her, they'd already lost everything else. Savings, the house, his career. He'd burned every bridge trying to save her, called in every favor, sold anything that had value. None of it had been enough. Afterward, with a 6-year-old daughter and a reputation as a troublemaker in the tech industry, Lucas had taken what he could get. Custodial work paid enough to keep them housed and fed. The night shift meant he could walk Mia to school each morning, be there when she woke up, help with homework before he left for work at 10 p.m. It wasn't the life he'd planned, but it was the life Mia needed. "Dad?" She looked up from her reading book. "Why don't you work during the day like other parents?" He'd answered this before, but she asked it new ways each time. Testing. Wondering if the answer would change. "Because this way, I get to have breakfast with you every morning, and I'm here when you get home from school. That's worth more than sleep." She considered this seriously, then nodded, satisfied for now. At 9:30 p.m., he tucked her into bed, read her a chapter of the book they were working through, currently a fantasy about dragons and brave children, and kissed her forehead. "Love you bigger than the sky," he whispered, their ritual phrase. "Bigger than space," she answered, eyes already closing. He left her door cracked open, nightlight glowing, and changed into his work uniform. Gray pants, gray shirt with Aurora Systems facilities embroidered on the chest, steel-toed boots, ID badge on a lanyard. The babysitter, Mrs. Chen from downstairs, knocked at 9:50. She'd stay until 7 a.m. when Lucas returned. They'd worked out a rate he could almost afford. She watched 3 kids in the building overnight, charged less than daycare, asked no questions about his odd schedule. "She already asleep?" Mrs. Chen asked, settling into the armchair with her knitting. "Just, homework's done. There's coffee if you want it. Go on, Lucas. Don't be late." The walk to the bus stop took 15 minutes through snow-packed sidewalks. The number 47 bus carried him downtown, mostly empty at this hour except for other night shift workers, hospital staff, security guards, people who kept the city running while everyone else slept. Aurora systems glowed against the dark sky. Lucas badged in through the service entrance at 10:28 p.m., 2 minutes early as always. The day shift custodian, Ray, was finishing his checklist. "Cold one tonight," Ray said, handing over the supply cart. "They're saying another 6 inches by morning. Roads will be hell." Lucas checked the cart's inventory: cleaning solutions, microfiber cloths, trash bags, floor polish. Everything in its place. "You got the 8th floor tonight, executive wing and the research area. They want the glass walls polished, some big shots visiting tomorrow." Lucas nodded. The 8th floor, where the secrets lived, behind biometric locks and stern warnings about confidentiality, where the security cameras followed his every movement. He didn't know yet that someone was watching more carefully than usual, didn't know that his routine had become suspicious, didn't realize that his careful attention to detail, the habit of treating every piece of equipment with respect, of pausing when he noticed error messages on unattended monitors, of walking with purpose through spaces most people ignored, had marked him as different, dangerous, even. He just pushed his cart toward the elevators and began another night of invisible work, while snow continued to fall on Northvale, burying everything in white silence. Evelyn's own alarm went off at 5:30 a.m., as it had every morning for the past 8 months. She silenced it and lay still for a moment, listening to her house breathe around her. The heating system hummed. Snow brushed against windows like whispered secrets. In the next room, Noah was still sleeping. She could picture him, sprawled diagonally across his bed, one leg hanging off the edge, his stuffed elephant clutched under one arm, even though he insisted he was too old for it now. She rose quietly, showered, dressed in the dark armor of her professional life. Charcoal suit, minimal jewelry, hair pulled back severely. The mirror showed her what she needed. Someone controlled. Someone who made decisions based on data, not emotion. Someone who'd learned the hard way that emotion made you vulnerable. By 6:15, she was reviewing files at her kitchen table, laptop open, coffee growing cold beside her. Lucas Reed's employment application. His background check clean, almost suspiciously so. His personnel file 3 years at Aurora. 0 complaints, 0 incidents. Perfect attendance except for 2 days last year when his daughter had been sick. His daughter, Mia. 8 years old, 3rd grade at Snowbridge Elementary. Evelyn pulled up her own son's school district. Same area. Same struggling neighborhood where the snow piled high and the city plows came last. The parallel felt uncomfortable. She pushed it aside. At 7, Noah emerged, rubbing sleep from his eyes. She closed the laptop. "Morning, honey." "Cereal or eggs?" "Cereal's fine." He slumped into a chair, still half asleep. "Can Ben come over after school?" "Not today. I have a late meeting." She poured cereal, added milk, set it in front of him. "Mrs. Rodriguez will pick you up and you'll do homework at her house until I'm done. You're always done late now." The accusation hung between them. True, but unspoken. She'd promised after the divorce that she'd be more present, that she wouldn't let work consume everything like it had during her marriage. She was breaking that promise. Again, this is a big month for the company, Noah. After the Genesis launch, things will calm down. I promise." He ate his cereal without responding. 10 years old and already learning to doubt promises. She dropped him at school, watched him trudge through the snow toward the entrance without looking back, and felt the familiar weight of guilt and necessity pressing down on her chest. Then she drove to Aurora Systems and became the CEO again. The person who couldn't afford doubt. At 9:30, she called her head of security, Derek Morse, into her office. The janitor. Lucas Reed. "What else do we know?" Derek laid out a folder. "Not much. He's a ghost. No criminal record. No debt. No social media presence. His previous employer was a tech startup that went under 5 years ago, Vital Core Systems. What did he do there? Application says software quality assurance. But Vital Core went bankrupt before we could verify. No references reachable." Evelyn frowned. "And he went from QA to custodial work? People fall through cracks. Divorce, medical bankruptcy, elder care, could be anything. Want me to dig deeper? No." She made the decision quickly. If he's working for someone, deeper digging might alert them. Just maintain surveillance. And tell me everywhere he goes tonight. You really think he's stealing code? Evelyn looked out at the city, at the snow falling endlessly over Northvale's towers. "I think people wear masks. I think everyone has secrets. And I think when something seems too clean, it usually means someone's hiding dirt." Derek left. Evelyn pulled up Lucas's file again, studying the man's face in the ID photo. Weathered features, steady eyes, the look of someone who'd learned to endure without complaining, or the look of someone very good at deception. Her phone buzzed. A text from Noah. "Forgot my lunch, sorry." She closed her eyes briefly, added failure as a mother to her mental list of inadequacies, and messaged her assistant to have something delivered to his school. Then she returned to the files. The logs. The evidence that didn't quite add up to proof, but whispered danger nonetheless. By Friday evening, she'd made her decision. Marcus and Derek had both argued for immediate termination, but Evelyn overruled them. She needed to know, needed to understand what Lucas Reed was actually doing in those restricted areas, needed to know if her instincts about betrayal were right, or if she'd become so damaged by past wounds that she saw enemies in every shadow. At 9:45 p.m., she sat in her car in Aurora's parking lot, engine off, wearing jeans and a dark coat. Not CEO clothes. Just a woman who could disappear into a winter night. Lucas Reed's old sedan pulled into the far lot at 10:26. She watched him get out, pull his collar up against the wind, and trudge toward the service entrance. Then she waited, watching snow accumulate on her windshield, breathing fog into the cold car, questioning her sanity and her judgment in equal measure. At 1:30 a.m., Lucas emerged. He walked slowly to his car, shoulders hunched, looking exactly like a tired man heading home after a long shift. He pulled out of the lot. Evelyn started her engine and followed. The roads were treacherous, snow falling heavy enough to blur the taillights ahead. She kept her distance, following him through Northvale's industrial district, past warehouses dark and shuttered, past neighborhoods where the streetlights struggled against the storm. He wasn't heading home. His apartment was east. He was driving south. Evelyn's hands tightened on the wheel. This was it. The meeting with his handler. The proof she needed. Lucas's car turned into an area Evelyn barely recognized, a neighborhood forgotten by development, where buildings sagged under years of deferred maintenance. Not the industrial parks where corporate spies conducted business. Not the upscale districts where money changed hands quietly. Just poverty. Real and grinding. His car pulled into the parking lot of a squat brick building. Snow-covered sign. Snowbridge Community Learning Center. Evelyn parked a block away, killed her lights, and waited. Her heart hammering. Her certainty beginning to crack at the edges. Lucas got out of his car carrying something. A laptop bag. 3 of them, actually, bulky and old-fashioned. He didn't look around. Didn't check for surveillance. Just walked through the snow to the building's entrance and went inside. Evelyn sat in the dark for 5 full minutes, doubt gnawing at her. Then she got out of her car and walked through the storm toward the truth she wasn't ready to face. The snow had turned from falling to assault. Wind drove it horizontal across empty streets, stinging Evelyn's face as she approached the community center. Her boots crunched through fresh powder, each step an accusation. "What are you doing here? What do you hope to find?" The building looked abandoned at first glance. Brick facade weathered by decades, windows dim except for a pale glow from one corner room. A hand-painted sign hung crooked by the door. Snowbridge, CLC. Building futures together. Evelyn's breath came out in white clouds. She'd expected a warehouse, a parking garage, somewhere anonymous where information could be passed, money exchanged, betrayal consummated in the dark. Not this. Not a community center in the poorest part of Northvale, where the city's plow trucks didn't bother coming until days after storms ended. She moved closer, staying in shadow. Through a frost-edged window, she could see into what looked like a large room with folding tables and mismatched chairs. And people, a dozen at least, mostly children. Some teenagers. A few adults standing against the back wall. And Lucas Reed, at the front, connecting laptops to an ancient projector. Evelyn pressed closer to the glass, her rational mind struggling to reconcile what she was seeing with what she'd expected to find. Lucas wasn't meeting anyone, wasn't passing stolen files or receiving payment. He was teaching. The projector flickered to life, casting blue light across the room. On the screen, lines of code. Python, from what Evelyn could see. Basic syntax, introductory level stuff. Lucas turned to face his audience. Even from outside, even through fogged glass, Evelyn could see the transformation. The hunched shoulders straightened, the tired expression lifted. This wasn't the invisible janitor who pushed a cart through corporate hallways. This was someone else entirely. She watched as he wrote on a whiteboard, explaining something she couldn't hear. A girl of maybe 13 raised her hand. Lucas nodded, patient, and wrote out what looked like a debug sequence. The girl studied it, nodded, turned back to her laptop. The adults against the back wall were parents, Evelyn realized, sitting quietly while their children learned. One woman worked on her own laptop, her expression fierce with concentration. An older man took notes in a spiral notebook. Evelyn's phone buzzed. She ignored it. Couldn't look away from the scene before her. Lucas moved between the tables, stopping to check each student's work. His movements were careful, precise, the same precision she'd noticed in security footage, now recontextualized entirely. Not the caution of a thief, the attentiveness of a teacher who knew every student's skill level and learning style. One of the laptops he'd carried in Evelyn recognized it suddenly. An old Dell from Aurora's surplus, the kind they decommissioned every year, wiped and sold for parts or thrown away. Lucas had taken them. But not to steal, to repurpose, to give to children who otherwise would never touch a computer. The phone buzzed again. This time she looked. "Derek, where are you? Security flagged your car leaving the facility." She typed back, "Following up on something. I'll explain tomorrow." Through the window, Lucas had moved to help a young boy whose laptop screen showed nothing but error messages. He crouched beside the child's chair, pointed at something, waited while the boy tried again. When the program finally ran, Lucas's face split in a grin Evelyn had never seen on him at work. Pride, pure and uncomplicated. The door beside her opened suddenly. An older woman stepped out, pulling a coat tight against the wind. She startled when she saw Evelyn. "Can I help you?" Evelyn's CEO instincts kicked in. Authority, confidence. "I'm sorry to lurk. I work with Lucas," at Aurora Systems. I was curious what he does here. The woman's expression softened, moved from suspicion to something like relief. You work with Luke? Come in, come in. You'll freeze out here. Before Evelyn could protest, she was being ushered into a narrow hallway that smelled of old coffee and floor wax. The woman, introducing herself as Margaret Chen, the center's director, continued talking. Luke's been volunteering here for almost 2 years. Every Friday night, sometimes Saturdays. Teaching programming. Basic computer literacy. Half these kids never touched a keyboard before he started. Margaret's voice carried genuine affection. He won't take a penny. Says he's paying it forward. Paying it forward? Evelyn found her voice. For what someone did for him once. At least that's what he told me. Never gave me the whole story. Margaret paused at a door, her hand on the knob. You want to observe the class? He won't mind. Luke's not precious about having visitors. But Evelyn stepped back. No, I should go. I was worried about him. Working such long hours. Margaret's expression grew knowing. He does work too hard. But some people, that's how they heal. By helping others. She studied Evelyn with sharp eyes. You look like you might understand that. The words landed with unexpected weight. Evelyn nodded mutely, turned, and walked back out into the storm before Margaret could ask anything else. In her car, she sat shaking. Not from cold. From the complete collapse of every assumption she'd built over the past 2 weeks. Lucas Reed wasn't a thief, wasn't a spy, wasn't her ex-husband wearing a new face. He was just a man trying to do something good with the pieces of whatever life had broken in him, and she'd been ready to destroy him for it. Evelyn pulled out her phone with numb fingers and opened Lucas's file again. This time she saw past the suspiciously clean record to what it actually showed. A man who'd disappeared from his industry and never tried to return, who took night shift work so he could be there for his daughter during the day, who stole nothing except discarded equipment that Aurora would have thrown away. Her phone rang. Marcus, where are you? Derek said. I'm following Lucas Reed, she said quietly, and I think we've made a terrible mistake. Evelyn didn't go home. She sat in her car outside the community center until Lucas emerged at nearly 3 a.m., carrying the empty laptop bags. He looked exhausted but somehow lighter than she'd ever seen him at Aurora. She didn't follow him home. Instead, she drove back to her office, still in her civilian clothes, and did what she should have done at the beginning. Real research. Vital Core Systems, Lucas's previous employer. The trail had gone cold because the company folded, but Evelyn had resources the average background check didn't. By 5 a.m., she'd found archived news articles, LinkedIn profiles of former employees, scattered digital remnants of a company that had died badly, and there it was. Vital Core Systems Files, Chapter 7, Bankruptcy Amid Software Safety Scandal. She read faster, her coffee forgotten and cold. Vital Core had developed medical device software systems that managed patient data, dosage calculations, real-time monitoring in hospital settings. Critical infrastructure where errors meant lives. Lucas Reed, then known as Lucas Reed Chen, Emily's name, Evelyn realized, piecing it together, had been their senior system architect, a key player, well compensated, respected, rising, until he found the flaw. A rounding error in the medication dosage algorithm. Tiny. The kind of thing that might go unnoticed through standard testing. But Lucas had found it, calculated the real-world implications, and brought it to management. They'd buried it. Too close to a major contract signing. Too expensive to delay. The error was statistically unlikely to manifest, they'd argued. The risk acceptable. Lucas went to the FDA directly. The investigation that followed destroyed Vital Core. The contract evaporated. Investors fled. Within 6 months, the company ceased to exist, and Lucas Reed Chen became unhireable in the tech industry, labeled a troublemaker. A liability. someone who put principles over profits. Evelyn found one more piece, a memorial announcement from 3 years ago. Emily Reed Chen, beloved wife and mother, after a courageous battle with cancer. She cross-referenced the dates. Emily had been diagnosed just months after Vital Core collapsed. Lucas had lost his career and his wife in the same year, had watched his entire life disintegrate because he'd tried to save lives he'd never meet. The sun was rising when Evelyn finally looked up from her computer. Pink light streamed through her office windows, turning the falling snow into something beautiful instead of threatening. Her phone showed 17 missed calls, a crisis unfolding while she'd been excavating one man's tragedy. She called Marcus back. "Where the hell have you been?" His voice was ragged with panic. "We've got a critical system failure. The Genesis platform is throwing fatal errors in the pre-launch environment. Every test we run crashes the entire stack." Evelyn's blood went cold. How bad? Career-ending bad. Company-destroying bad. If we can't fix this before Tuesday, we have no product to launch. We have no company. She looked at Lucas Reed's face on her computer screen, the ID photo from his HR file, quiet and forgettable. Except he wasn't forgettable at all. He was the most competent system architect she'd probably ever overlooked. "Get the engineering team together," she said quietly. "All of them. I don't care if it's Saturday. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Evelyn, we've been working on this for 6 hours. Our best people can't find the problem." "Then, maybe," she said slowly, "we need someone who isn't one of our best people." The 8th floor of Aurora Systems was chaos when Evelyn arrived. Engineers hunched over workstations, energy drink cans scattered like shell casings. On the main display, error logs scrolled in an endless crimson stream. Marcus looked 10 years older than he had yesterday. "It's in the core. Something fundamental is broken, but we can't isolate it. Walk me through what you know." For the next hour, she listened as her team explained the cascade failure. Genesis was built on legacy architecture systems Aurora had acquired through a merger 4 years ago. That foundation had been solid, but the new features they'd layered on top were causing something to buckle under load. "We're missing something obvious," Sarah Yee, their lead engineer, said with frustration. "It's staring at us, and we can't see it." Evelyn pulled out her phone. Looked at the time. 10:15 a.m. Lucas would be home now, probably sleeping after his shift. Mia would be at a friend's house or watching cartoons quietly so as not to wake her father. She scrolled to his contact information from the HR file, stared at the number. This could backfire catastrophically, could humiliate him, could humiliate her. But the alternative was watching Aurora collapse because her pride wouldn't let her ask for help. She dialed. Lucas answered on the 4th ring, his voice thick with sleep. "Hello? Mr. Reed, this is Evelyn Hart, from Aurora Systems." A long pause. She could almost hear him sitting up, trying to understand why the CEO was calling him on a Saturday morning. "Ma'am, I need to ask you something directly, and I need you to be honest with me. Did you work on the cloud core architecture at Vital Core Systems?" Silence. Then, carefully, "That project was under NDA. Vital Core is defunct. The NDA is meaningless. Cloud Core is the foundation of our Genesis platform. We acquired it in the merger, and right now it's failing in ways we can't diagnose." She paused, made herself vulnerable in a way she hadn't with anyone in years. "I know who you are, Lucas. I know what you did. And I'm asking for your help." Another long silence. When Lucas spoke again, his voice had changed. Clearer. Stronger. "What kind of failure are you seeing?" Marcus looked at her like she'd lost her mind as she put the call on speaker. "Cascade crashes under load. Memory management looks fine. Thread handling is optimized. But something in the core keeps corrupting." "What's your data structure for the cache layer?" Lucas asked, and Evelyn could hear him moving now, fully awake. Sarah answered, Binary tree with hash indexing. And you're running parallel processes? Of course. That's your problem. Lucas's voice was certain. Cloud Core was never designed for parallel execution at scale. The cache structure has a race condition in how it handles concurrent writes. It's invisible until you hit a specific threshold of simultaneous access. Did Vital Core document this limitation? Marcus pulled up the technical documentation, scanned it. His face went pale. It's mentioned once, one paragraph in a 400-page spec. We never saw it, because it was buried deliberately, Lucas said quietly. Management didn't want to admit the architecture had fundamental constraints. They were already in talks to sell when I left. Evelyn made a decision. Can you come in? Today? I know it's your time with your daughter. I know you need sleep, but I can be there in 90 minutes, Lucas interrupted. But Miss Hart? I need to be clear about something. I left this industry for a reason. I'm not looking to come back. Understood. Just help us fix this, please. He hung up. The engineering team stared at Evelyn like she'd conjured a ghost. You hired a system architect to push a mop? Marcus said slowly. I hired a janitor who turned out to be a system architect. There's a difference. Evelyn looked at the error logs still cascading across the screen. And right now, he might be the only person who can save us. Lucas arrived in jeans and a winter coat, not his uniform. He'd brought Mia with him, no time to arrange other care, and the 8-year-old sat quietly in a break room with her tablet while her father entered the war room. The transformation was immediate. Lucas looked at the code, at the architecture diagrams, and Evelyn watched a different person emerge. Not the quiet custodian, the engineer he'd been before. Life stripped that identity away. Here, he said, pointing at a section of code. And here. You're trying to force thread safety on a system that wasn't built for it. It's like putting a race car engine in a bicycle frame. Can we fix it? Sarah asked. You have to rebuild the cache layer from scratch. Implement proper mutex locks, redesign the data structure for concurrent access. Lucas pulled up a whiteboard, began sketching. It's a 3-day job minimum, and that's if everything goes right. We have 48 hours until Monday testing deadline, Marcus said. Lucas studied the architecture in silence. Then, if I help, I need 3 things. 1. My daughter stays with me. She doesn't leave my sight. 2. After this is done, I go back to my normal life. No publicity, no promotion, no questions. 3. When this is over, Aurora funds technology education programs at Snowbridge Community Center. Properly. Not a one-time donation. A sustained commitment. Evelyn didn't hesitate. Deal. Lucas looked at her for a long moment, and she saw him measuring her sincerity. Whatever he found satisfied him. Then let's get to work. What happened over the next 3 days would become legend at Aurora Systems, though only a handful of people would ever know the full story. Lucas Reed, the night janitor, rebuilt the core architecture of their flagship product, while engineers with advanced degrees watched in something like awe. He worked with a precision that came from deep understanding, not just knowing how systems functioned, but knowing how they failed, where the pressure points were, what would break under stress. He codes like someone who's seen people die from bad software, Sarah whispered to Evelyn at 2 a.m. on Sunday night. On the screen, Lucas was refactoring a particularly complex section of the cache management system. He has, Evelyn said quietly. She'd shared Lucas's background with her senior team. They deserved to know who they were working with, why he'd disappeared, what he'd sacrificed. The respect in the room had shifted palpably after that. Mia camped in the break room, occasionally wandering in to bring her father sandwiches from the cafeteria or to show him drawings she'd made. The engineers started keeping candy in their desks for her. Marcus taught her a card game. Sarah let her try out a VR headset during a testing break, and Evelyn watched it all while fielding calls from the board. From investors, from journalists asking about Genesis launch rumors. She kept her voice calm and certain while internally counting down the hours until either salvation or catastrophe. Lucas barely slept. When he did, it was in 20-minute increments at his workstation, head on his arms. While the compilation processes ran, Evelyn brought him coffee at 4 a.m. on Monday, set it beside his keyboard without speaking. He looked up, surprised. "You're still here. It's my company." "Where else would I be? Home with your son?" The words stung because they were true. Noah was with his father this weekend, regularly scheduled custody, but Evelyn had missed dinner with him Friday night, had canceled their Saturday plans, was breaking promises again in the name of corporate survival. "He's with his dad," she said. Lucas studied her with those steady eyes. "I remember what that's like, being married to the work instead of the person. Is that what happened to you?" "No. Emily died anyway, no matter how present I was. But I learned something." He took the coffee, sipped it. "The work never loves you back. It just takes. Then why are you here?" Lucas looked through the glass wall toward the break room where Mia had fallen asleep on a couch covered with someone's jacket. "Because this time, the work is protecting other people, making sure the next Lucas doesn't have to make the choices I made. That's worth 3 days of my life." By Monday afternoon, they had a working prototype. By Monday midnight, it had passed initial testing. By Tuesday morning, as dawn broke over Northvale in clear winter light, the storm finally passed. They pushed the updated code to production. Genesis went live at 8 a.m. Evelyn stood in the command center, surrounded by her team, watching the metrics flow in. System load climbing, user connections multiplying, every indicator green. No crashes, no errors, no cascade failures. Lucas stood at the back of the room, almost invisible again. But Sarah started clapping, and then Marcus, and then the entire team turned and applauded the man in jeans and an old sweatshirt who'd saved their company. His face flushed red. He nodded once, uncomfortable with the attention, and slipped out. Evelyn found him in the break room, gently waking Mia. "Hey, sweetheart. Time to go home." "Did you fix it, Dad?" "We fixed it together. A lot of people working hard." "Not quite." Evelyn stepped inside. "The board wants to meet you. The press is already asking questions, and I need to." "No." Lucas stood, Mia's hand in his. "We had a deal. This is where I disappear again. You don't have to. Lucas, you could have your career back. I could offer you." "I don't want my career back." His voice was gentle but immovable. "I did what I do because it needed doing. But I'm not that person anymore. I'm Mia's dad. I'm a teacher at Snowbridge. That's enough." Evelyn felt something crack in her chest. "It's not about what you deserve. Maybe I deserve a quiet life. Maybe after what happened with Emily, I deserve to watch my daughter grow up without chasing the next achievement." He paused. "You kept your end of the deal? The funding for Snowbridge? 10-year commitment. $200,000 annually for technology education programs. I'm announcing it this afternoon." Lucas smiled, and it transformed his whole face. "Then we're square." He walked past her, Mia drowsy against his shoulder. Evelyn watched him go, watched him leave behind the second chance most people would kill for, and understood something about courage she'd never grasped before. Sometimes the bravest thing was knowing what you needed and refusing everything else, no matter how it glittered. The press conference was scheduled for 2 p.m. Evelyn stood backstage in the Aurora Auditorium, listening to the crowd settle. Business journalists, tech bloggers, investors, employees, all waiting to hear about Genesis and how Aurora had pulled off a perfect launch after whispers of disaster. She was supposed to credit her team, take a victory lap, position Aurora for the market surge everyone predicted would follow. But Lucas's words kept echoing. "The work never loves you back." Her phone buzzed. A text from Noah. "Dad says I can stay extra night, is that okay?" She stared at the message. Her ex-husband being flexible for once, or their son not wanting to come home. When had that shift happened? When had she become the lesser option? Another text, this time from Lucas, meant to thank you properly. You didn't have to protect my privacy. Most CEOs would have made me the story. That was decent of you. Evelyn typed back. You saved my company and asked for nothing. That deserves respect. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, you've got a good team there, Sarah especially. She'll do brilliant things if you let her lead more. Marcus too, but he second-guesses himself. Needs encouragement. She smiled at the phone. Even in Exit, Lucas was teaching. Noted. Good luck with the Snowbridge program. Come visit sometime. You might be surprised what those kids can do. Marcus appeared at her elbow. We're ready for you. Evelyn pocketed her phone and walked onto the stage. Camera flashes. Applause. The weight of expectation settling on her shoulders like snow. She talked about Genesis. About the team's dedication. About Aurora's commitment to innovation and excellence. Said all the right things in the right order, but she didn't mention Lucas, didn't turn him into a redemption narrative or a marketing angle, kept her promise. Afterward, back in her office, she pulled up the funding authorization for Snowbridge. 200,000 annually seemed suddenly insufficient. She changed it to 350 and added a clause. Any Aurora employee could volunteer company time for approved community education programs. Patricia from HR looked at the memo skeptically. That's generous. Because, Evelyn said slowly, thinking of Lucas teaching Python to children who'd never owned computers, sometimes the best investment isn't in products, it's in people who might never work for you. Part 9. Spring thaw. Weeks passed. Genesis exceeded every projection. Aurora's stock climbed 20%. Evelyn was profiled in industry magazines, invited to speak at conferences, courted by boards looking for her particular brand of leadership. And she found herself restless. The triumph felt hollow, like eating food that looked perfect but had no taste. She started leaving work at 5 p.m. twice a week, had dinner with Noah, listened when he talked about school, actually listened instead of thinking about quarterly targets, let him beat her at video games without checking her phone. You're different lately, Noah said one evening in March, when the snow had finally started retreating. Different how? More here. He shrugged, the eloquence of 10-year-olds. Even when you're here, it was enough. In April, Evelyn drove to Snowbridge Community Center. The building looked better than she remembered. Fresh paint, new sign, lights blazing in the evening dusk. Inside, she found controlled chaos. 20 children had computers, ages ranging from maybe 7 to 16. Parents in a side room taking their own classes, and Lucas moving between workstations with the patience of someone who'd found exactly where he belonged. He saw her, smiled in surprise, and finished helping a boy debug his code before walking over. CEO field trip? Wanted to see where our money was going. We've got a waiting list now. Had to expand to 3 nights a week. Lucas gestured toward the side room. That's job skills training. Basic office software, resume building, interview prep. Margaret's idea. Turns out teaching kids is great, but teaching their parents helps whole families. A girl approached, maybe 15, carrying a laptop. Mr. Reed? Can you check my website? I think I got the responsive design working. Sure, Claire. Lucas examined her screen, pointed out a CSS issue, watched her fix it. Beautiful. Show your mom. She's going to be proud. Claire beamed and hurried away. Lucas turned back to Evelyn. She's going to college next year. Computer science. Full scholarship. A year ago, she'd never written a line of code. You did this. The money did this. Your company did this. He paused. But yeah, I helped. They stood in comfortable silence, watching children learn. Evelyn thought about trajectories, how Claire's life had been altered by one program, how Lucas had been erased from his industry and found purpose anyway, how she'd been so certain betrayal was everywhere that she'd almost missed something genuine. "I owe you an apology," she said quietly. "I followed you here. That first night, I was convinced you were stealing from us." Lucas didn't look surprised. "I know. Saw your car that night. Terrible tail job, you should work on that." Evelyn laughed despite herself. "You knew? Security cameras had been following me for weeks. I figured someone was building a case. Then the CEO calls me Saturday morning. Knows my whole history? I can connect dots." He shrugged. "You did what you thought was right to protect your company. I did what I needed to do to protect these kids. Worked out. You're not angry?" "I was angry for a long time. At Vital Core, at the industry, at myself for not seeing Emily's cancer sooner." Lucas watched a young boy successfully run his first program, the kid's face lighting up with joy, but anger's exhausting. "This is better." Mia ran over, backpack bouncing. "Dad, finished my homework. Can we—" "Oh, hi, Miss Hart." "Hi, Mia. Your dad talks about you a lot." "He talks about you too," Mia said with 8-year-old candor. "Says you're scary, but fair." "Mia." Lucas's voice carried gentle reproach, but his eyes held humor. "It's accurate," Evelyn said, grinning. She stayed for an hour, watching the classes, talking to Margaret about the program's growth. Before leaving, she pulled Lucas aside. "I want to expand this. Not just funding, but replication. Other cities, other Aurora offices. Would you consult? I'm not looking to expand my hours, Miss Hart. 2 Saturdays a month. Remote participation. You help other people set up similar programs. We pay you consultant rates." She paused. "And you can keep being Mia's dad and keep pushing your cart at Aurora. No strings. No return to corporate life." Lucas considered. "Why?" "Because this matters more than Genesis. And because—" Evelyn struggled for words. "Because I spent years measuring success by quarters and stock prices. You measure it by kids who learn to code. I want Aurora to do more of that." He extended his hand. "Deal." June brought summer to Northvale. The city that had been buried under snow bloomed with unexpected vigor. Flowers in median strips, trees thick with leaves, children playing in parks that had been desolate white expanses just months before. Aurora Systems' new community initiative launched in 6 cities. Code Forward, they called it. With Lucas as the program architect working remotely, maintaining his boundaries, but spreading what worked at Snowbridge to places that needed it. Evelyn still worked long hours. But she'd learned to distinguish between necessary and compulsive, between leadership and running away from herself. She had dinner with Noah 4 nights a week now. They cooked together, talked about his friends and her work, made plans for a real vacation in August, and twice a month she volunteered at Snowbridge. Not for photo ops or press releases, just to help. To watch Lucas teach, to see what passion looked like when it wasn't about profit margins. One evening in late June, after classes ended, Lucas found her in the computer lab updating software on the machines. "You don't have to do that. We have IT volunteers." "I know, but I like it. Reminds me why I got into tech in the first place." Evelyn finished the installation, watched the progress bar complete. Before it became about valuations and market share, Lucas leaned against a desk. "You could have destroyed me back in January. One word from you, I lose my job, maybe face charges for taking those computers. You were fixing discarded equipment and giving it to children. Companies have prosecuted people for less. But you didn't. Even when you thought I might be stealing secrets." He looked at her curiously. "Why?" Evelyn thought about that night in the snow, watching Lucas through frosted glass. The moment when all her certainties about betrayal and masks had cracked apart. "Because somewhere under the paranoia, I still wanted to believe people could be good. And you were." She smiled. Also, firing you would have been terrible judgment. You saved our company. We saved it together, Lucas corrected gently. You, me, Sarah, Marcus, everyone who worked that weekend. That's how good things happen. Not heroes, just people helping. Outside, summer dusk painted the sky in shades of gold and amber. Through the window, Evelyn could see Mia and Noah playing basketball on the community center's small court. They'd become friends over the months, both smart, both a little lonely, both learning that having one engaged parent was enough. My ex-husband called last week, Evelyn said abruptly. Wants full custody. Says I'm still too focused on work, that Noah deserves better. Lucas waited, giving her space to continue. And maybe he's right about the old me, the one who measured worth by hours logged and deals closed. She watched her son laugh at something Mia said, both of them flushed and happy. But he's wrong about now. I'm different. Noah knows it. And I know I'll fight for him and win because I'm finally showing up. Sounds like you learned something, Lucas said. Yeah, that the people who clean floors at night can be better teachers than the ones in corner offices. She stood, brushed dust from her jeans. Come on, let's go shoot hoops with our kids before they get too good and embarrass us. They walked out together into the warm evening. The city stretched around them, no longer threatening or cold. Just a place where people lived and worked and tried their best, where a CEO could become a volunteer, a janitor could become a teacher, and two single parents could find friendship in the ruins of their respective disasters. Part 11. What Remains. December returned to Northvale, bringing snow once again. But this year, Evelyn watched it fall from her office window without the tight anxiety that had consumed her before. Genesis had become industry standard. Aurora was thriving. And more importantly, Code Forward was operating in 20 cities now, teaching thousands of children who'd never had access before. The board had questioned the expense. Evelyn had held firm. This is who we are now, she'd told them. We build technology and we build people. Both matter. They'd voted in her favor. Barely, but enough. Lucas still worked as a custodian at Aurora, still taught at Snowbridge. He'd turned down 3 job offers from other companies who'd eventually learned his story, turned them all down with the same polite firmness. I know who I am now, he'd told Evelyn. I'm not interested in going backward. Evelyn understood. She'd stopped climbing, too, in her own way. Turned down CEO positions at larger companies, advisory board seats, speaking engagements that would have boosted her profile. She was building something here, something that mattered more than legacy. On the winter solstice shortest day, longest night, Aurora held its annual celebration. But this year, it wasn't in some rented venue downtown. It was at Snowbridge, with employees volunteering alongside community members to throw a party for the kids in the programs. Evelyn found Lucas in the computer lab, setting up a projection system for the evening's showcase. Students would demonstrate projects they'd built over the year. Noah says Mia's project is going to blow everyone away, Evelyn said. He might be right. She's been working on it for months. Lucas smiled with obvious pride. Can't tell you what it is. She swore me to secrecy. The showcase that evening was magic. 10-year-olds demonstrating apps they'd coded. Teenagers presenting websites they'd built for local businesses. Parents showing off spreadsheet skills and job applications typed with newfound confidence. And Mia, small and determined at the podium, presenting a program she'd written called Helper that matched community needs with volunteer skills. It was simple but functional, and it worked. My dad says the best technology solves real problems, she explained to the crowd. This helps people find each other when they need help. The room erupted in applause. Lucas looked at his daughter like she'd hung the moon. Evelyn felt tears she didn't expect sting her eyes. Afterward, as people ate cookies and talked, Sarah found Evelyn by the refreshment table. You know what I realized? Sarah said. Lucas was always the best of us. Not because of his code, though that's brilliant, Because he understood what we forget sometimes, that technology should serve people, not replace them. He's a good teacher, Evelyn agreed. So are you. Sarah gestured at the room full of volunteers and families and bridged communities. You could have had Lucas rebuild our architecture and disappeared him. Instead, you built all this. That's leadership. Evelyn watched Noah help Mia pack up her presentation materials. Watched Lucas talk with Margaret about expanding to yet another location. Watched her employees, people she'd once thought of only in terms of productivity, laughing with children they were mentoring. Leadership is just recognizing good ideas and getting out of their way, she said. Then you're doing it right. Later, as the party wound down and snow fell outside, Evelyn stood with Lucas in the quiet computer lab. Thank you, she said simply. For what? You did all the work here. For teaching me what matters. For showing me that invisible doesn't mean insignificant. She paused. For being exactly who you are even when I suspected you of being someone else. Lucas looked at her with those steady eyes that had seen loss and chosen kindness anyway. You did the same for me, you know. Gave me back something I didn't know I'd lost. A reason to use these skills again. A way to be more than just a survivor. Through the window, the city glowed with Christmas lights and possibility. The snow fell soft and clean, covering old scars, promising renewal. Strange how things work out, Evelyn said. 6 months ago, I was convinced you were stealing from me. 6 months ago, I was. Lucas said with a slight smile. Those computers were definitely company property. Best theft I never prosecuted. They stood in comfortable silence, watching snow accumulate on the windowsill. Two people who'd been broken by betrayal and loss, who'd found their way to something like wholeness through work that mattered, and friendship that asked nothing but honesty. Same time next Friday? Lucas asked. Same time, Evelyn confirmed. I'll bring coffee. I'll bring the lesson plans. And in the morning, Lucas would push his cart through Aurora's silent hallways, invisible to most but seen by those who mattered, would teach children their worth in code and kindness, would raise his daughter with the fierce, protective love of someone who knows exactly how fragile life is, and Evelyn would lead her company with a different kind of ambition. One measured not in stock prices, but in communities strengthened. In children given chances, in recognition that the truest success is found in lifting others up. The snow kept falling. The city kept turning. And two people who'd learned to trust again kept showing up, doing the work, building the world they'd both been looking for all along. One night shift, one lesson, one day at a time.